Hi, this is Nanette Hosenfeld with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, September 16th, 2021. Looking at fire potential impacts through Saturday, there's quite a bit going on. Today we will see areas with winds gusting in the 25 to 35 mile an hour range, combined with low relative humidity. So moving to Friday, that area of gusty winds expands, and we begin to see some really isolated mixed wet and dry thunderstorms across the far southern portion of the Great Basin. And then moving into Saturday, we see winds really pick up across portions of Nevada and Idaho. Those areas are highlighted in red on the map. Looking at winds a little lower speeds further to the south, Nevada into Utah, and then wet thunderstorms across much of Utah. We will also see smoke returning with winds across the region. Looking at the afternoon near surface smoke forecast for this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon, still not looking at smoke like what we saw last week. Conditions are still looking better than what we had seen last week as far as those impacts to visibility and air quality. And then looking at the 6,000 foot smoke forecast, more the upper level forecast, you can see going into tomorrow afternoon we are expecting smoke to thicken across portions of northern Nevada and into northern Utah. Over the past 24 hours, no precipitation and no lightning. Picked up a few new fires across the Great Basin yesterday. Looking at observed precipitation over the past 7 and the past 14 days, the areas that have received the greatest precipitation are the southeastern portions of the Great Basin, still dry portions of Nevada and Idaho. The ERCs are generally on the rise across the Great Basin. Almost all of the stations are showing an upward trend over the past 3 days. Not surprisingly, ERCs are the highest across the northern part of the Great Basin, where there's not been as much precipitation. ERCs are rising across the south. Conditions have dried a bit across the south compared to what we saw through the summer. So ERCs a little above normal, but nowhere near record values. Then GB12 along the Sierra front, right around normal values for the time of year. Taking a look at live fuel moisture, this is a sagebrush moisture. You can see many of the sites in Utah have the live fuel moisture right around normal, looking at drier conditions in Idaho and Nevada where there's not been as much precipitation. Satellite this morning shows an upper low moving into the Great Basin. That is going to bring us our really interesting weather over the next few days. For this afternoon, quite a bit of dry air in place across the southern part of the Great Basin. The upper low making its way towards us will lead to gusty winds across the northern part of the area. You can see winds this afternoon across the southern part of the area expected to be in that 25 to 35 mile an hour range with lower relative humidities. And then going into Friday, looking at winds really beginning to pick up ahead of that approaching low pressure system. And you can see the areas on our significant fire potential map where we are highlighting that risk of low relative humidities and gusty winds. Taking a closer look at the winds and relative humidity for tomorrow, you can see those areas in Nevada and up into Idaho where winds will be in that 25 to 35 mile an hour range in the afternoon, and those areas will also see critically dry relative humidities. So moving to Saturday, the upper low digs through the northern part of the Great Basin. We'll really see winds increase as that moves through, and you can see a pretty large portion of our area highlighted with that wind threat for Saturday. Looking at those winds in closer detail, some really gusty winds expected with that in that 35 to 45 mile an hour range. The good news is that relative humidity has come up a bit across the southeastern part of the Great Basin, but in those areas with really gusty winds, we are looking at critically dry relative humidities. Then looking at the forecast thunderstorm coverage for Saturday, you can see much of Utah, central Utah into southeastern Utah, will see afternoon showers and thunderstorms as some moisture is pulled up into the area ahead of that approaching low. Over the next 3 days, the main day of precipitation will be on Saturday. You can see some areas could see between 1/4 and 1/2 inch of rain. Likely the higher terrain will see those greater rainfall amounts. And as we move into Sunday, still looking at that upper low across the northern part of the area, bringing gusty winds to the southern part of the Great Basin. You can see a lot of the PSCs across the northern and central portion of the Great Basin have transitioned to green with the cooler weather, higher relative humidities, and precipitation expected as this trough moves through. Moving into Monday, that low pressure system begins to lift out of the area, looking at a warming and drying trend beginning from the western part of the Great Basin. Then on Tuesday, looking at that high pressure continue to build across the area, continuing to see warming and drying across much of the Great Basin. And finally on Wednesday, still looking at dry air in place across much of the area. In the next 7 days, the main precipitation will fall over the next 3 days. We could see some pretty good precipitation across the northern part of Nevada and Idaho. And finally, 8 to 14 day outlook, the Climate Prediction Center is calling for below normal precipitation for the entire area, with potential for some below normal temperatures across portions of Nevada. So that's it. If there are any questions, please feel free to contact us. Information is on the screen, and you can also find us on Twitter. Thanks.